BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year. With up to the minute odds, stats, and trends, you can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or mobile devices. Head to BetOnline today to become part of the team and remember to use promo code Bleav for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that's promo code BLEAV. BetOnline. The game starts here. Welcome to Bleav in Cardinals, part of the Bleav Network, joined by NFL veteran and Super Bowl 33 participant on the Atlanta Falcons, Ed Smith. I am Javon Adams. Be sure to subscribe, comment, and rate and follow the podcast and tell all your Cardinals fans to do the same. You can also watch us on Bleav TV around the country, in airports, and on YouTube. Read the top Bleav stories at si.com and follow us across all your Bleav socials. Again, this is Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. That is Ed Smith. What is good, my brother?
Happy Friday to you, man. A lot of rich young men walking around this week after signing some of these contracts. We got a few of them out here in Arizona. Obviously, we're going to get into it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So this is this is a little bit of a recap of the things that have been going on this week in the world of free agency in the NFL. Before we get into it, and I said this earlier on another podcast that we do, is that it's funny how the legal tampering starts at a certain time, whether it's, let's say, 3:00 Pacific, 3:00 Eastern, or if it's midnight or whatever it is. And within a minute or two, you have contracts, you have deals that are being struck. It's funny how that works, whether it's basketball, football. It doesn't work so much for Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball, they don't have that frenzy. It's the hot stove where there's a lot of conversation about stuff, but nothing typically happens. It happens in drips and drabs and stuff like that.
Well, it's also funny how you have a legal tampering period, yet you can still have tampering accusations, and it almost seems like bitter beer face. Somebody out there didn't get their Kirk Cousins or their Saquon Barkley, and all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, somebody's cheating, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, I don't understand the whole thing either. Like you said, at 12:01 or whatever time, we have all these deals struck, and I think the NFL loves it. It'll be interesting to see if there's any penalty or if they come up with anything for the Giants and for the Falcons. But it is what it is, man. Those teams they might lose a draft pick or something like that. I think they'll be okay with whatever the outcome is.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So let's get to some things that are Cardinals centric. The Cardinals have made some moves. There's a couple that I wanted to point out to you. We both have one of the ones that happened in the evening yesterday was wide receiver Chris Moore signed a 1-year deal, came from the Titans. So that's one. But there was a trade that happened. So Desmond Ridder was acquired in a trade from the Atlanta Falcons for Rondale Moore. Marquise Hollywood. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna name him Marquise. I'm gonna call him Marquise.
he decides to sign a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's, when we look at the wide receivers that are on the roster now, in terms of when I looked at the Cardinals roster, you got Chris Moore, you got Greg Dortch, Michael, and these are, can be practice squad folks as well. Daniel Arias and Andre Bocellia, Chisena, Pascal, Jeff Smith, Michael Wilson. So your thoughts on, before we start to break down some of these other things and the moves that you think that they're making, because no big splashes, but moves that are being made. But what did you think about the trade that sent Rondale Moore out and that brought a backup quarterback in Desmond Ridder? Because you saw Desmond Ridder up close when you went for the for the reunion of sorts, the anniversary of that Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl team last year. You saw him up close and personal.
Yeah, no disrespect, but that move,
that means somebody about to be disrespected.
That move to me, it's one of those, like, it happens, and you're feeling a need, I guess, because everybody needs a backup quarterback. But when that's probably one of the better moves that you've made, that does not say much for your acquisitions and your transactions for this frenzy of a free agency period so far. And here's the thing: we've seen some big names and
Mhm.
at big positions to become available. And I don't know whether we just got outbid or outworked, but I mean, like I said, if that's the best move you've made so far, you sent a mid-level wide receiver and you got a backup quarterback in, God bless you. And I'll say this, I guess, lack of splash move so far,
Mhm.
it gave me a message, and I'll tell you what the message I'm receiving is. This message is that both Gannon and Ossenfort realize we can't make this work overnight.
Mm.
So there's 3 different things you can do if you're trying to like redo an organization, take it from trash what we've been to a next level. And I'm not even saying championship level, but a level better than where we are right now. You can, and you've heard this before, Jay, you can run, you can jog, you can walk. If you're running, you're out there scrambling, trying to, we've seen it. Like some of these other organizations, they go out and try to buy it. They try to go out and get all the big names they can and maybe spend the money frivolously, but they're bringing it in because, hey, we got to go grab. It's like a grab. They want to video show games on TV.
Oh, yeah, where you have 30 seconds to get as much stuff as you
dash,
can.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Now, if you're jogging, you do a combination of both. It's like you get a couple of smart moves here, but hey, we're going to hold off on that. We might want to go get it, but we're not going to hold off, because we're going to it's like more of a slow burn. If you're walking, which it seems like the Cardinals are doing, because when you strip it down to the level that we did, we took this. I mean, you just ran through our wide receiver roster, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I mean, if I bumped into those dudes in the locker room, I wouldn't even be able to tell you who they are unless they were standing in front of their locker with the nameplate on it. Seriously, right? Okay.
Right.
So if you're walking it like the Cardinals seem to be doing, that is an agree. That's like Ossenfort went to ownership and said, hey, look, this isn't something that's going to look good last year, which it didn't. But it looked competitive, but didn't look good, as far as the record. This year is not going to be much different than what it looked like last year, maybe a game or two. We are getting a quarterback back, but it's not going to look much different than what it did last year as far as the win-loss record. We might tack a couple more on there, 6 wins, might even get to 7, but don't expect, because we are going to walk through the grocery store, and we already let everybody go. And some people, expert shoppers, will tell you the best time to go if you want your fresh groceries is at this time on this day, right?
Right.
We basically got there 2 or 3 hours late after everybody picked through all the lettuce and the celery and the leftovers are there. But we're gonna sift through and see if we can find something good. And if we don't, we can make this work for now. This message to me is they've all come into agreement. Because here's the thing, Jay, if ownership is like, wait a minute, we can't do what we did last year, you would see them out there scrambling.
That's true.
Trying to get everything they could because ownership's got the thumb on them. Like, I don't see that mess what we saw last year. But if everybody's in agreement, like, look, we've seen how you guys have done this before, and we're going to take a different approach. We're here for the long haul, so we're going to make this work, but it's not going to look good. So allow us to, we're not going to go out there and spend a whole lot of money on free agency, but we're going to try to make those quality moves in the draft, maybe move up, move down, do this, get more picks, and it's not going to look good, but we're working on something. Just trust us. That's what this tells me, because what we've seen so far is, and respect to them, they're doing, it seems like they have a plan. So we have to watch the plan. And the reason I'm saying this, because it's almost like letting fans know, hold on, because this isn't going to be a fast burn. This is going to be a slow burn. And a lot of people are going to be upset because they want to win now, whereas the organization's like, look, hold on, we're going to take this slow. But that's what this is telling me, because, I mean, I don't know. We haven't, between last year and this year, we haven't had a big name in here. They let more go than they brought in, and we'll see how it works. But, there's just obviously a different approach, because even Go ahead. I'll shut up.
No, you're good. You're good. I was going to say it's interesting what you said because I want to get to a player that they let go in just a second on the offensive line and then talk about the moves that they made in terms of additions or re-signings on the offensive line. But you made it's interesting because you can say that you have all the patience in the world, and if their plan is to build it slow and measured and walk instead of running or jogging, then this could be the same thing that happens next year as well, right? But if you're the owner and you start to see that there's again that word that I like to use, I use it all the time now, apathy. If there becomes apathy because they see that there are no splashes, they see that when you look on the offensive line that let's see, what is it? They re-signed 1, 2, 3 of their offensive linemen. And then they brought in Jonah Williams, an offensive tackle, signing him on a 2-year deal. They let go DJ Humphries. They're going to move over my man that came from Ohio State. So I mean, I get this stuff. You want to be able to have homegrown things, but Desmond Ridder doesn't excite me because Desmond Ridder's he's a backup, right? But and you realize that when we talked about the wide receiver room that they're and I before heading over here from working out this morning, I heard Dan Bickley say this, and this is something that I wanted to ask you in terms of just with the patience too, but shorter wide receivers, we got to kind of get those out, maybe get some taller wide receivers in because Kyler Murray is not going to grow. He's not going to get taller, and that's just what it is. And it's not a slight; it's just what the reality is. So you have some of these things, and it's interesting how this plays out because I seriously wonder if they're going to be patient enough to really allow this regime to build this, because it's when you build it brick by brick, it's slow. But if you go and get the quick concrete, oh yeah, we can do some things real quick. But then next thing you know, you're paying all this money and it's top heavy, and it becomes top heavy real quick.
Well, there's ways to remodel your house, Jay. We all know that. We've done room by room before. You know, your wife come to you and it's like, hey, I want a new kitchen. I want some cabinets. Okay. All right, honey, let's do that. And that's a project, right? Yeah. And then next year or the year after, hey, we need to redo our bathrooms because then there's the other way where you watch these home model shows where they come in and they just start knocking walls down. And I mean, next you know, when they're done, you got a house where you got to put plastic up because your windows are gone and there's no back door and and that's what the Cardinals did. They didn't do room by room because last year they showed us they did not re-sign anybody of what I would call even second tier talent here on our roster. Then they went out and they got guys on 1-year contract, guys that we didn't even know. We had to look and find out what school they went to and where and then, and the draft came and obviously you supplement there. But if you're building from the draft, I mean, that's got to be supplemental, meaning we're filling small holes. That's not redoing the entire house, because if we're redoing the entire house, that's not a project where you can still even live in the house. You gotta go somewhere and get a hotel for a couple months or something. When you watch these shows, what they do, they send the family off, then they come back like 6 months later. You know how long it is to live outside of your house for 6 months, Jay? If you equate that to a football team, we're living outside of it, meaning we're rebuilding it, and we're going to do it through second-tier players and not go get any big-time talent that's out there. And here's the thing. If there are some off seasons where it's like, wow, there's not a whole lot of free agents out there. Man, we saw running backs just like people just throwing them away, but they were good quality running backs. And then other teams were snatching them up. Saquon Barkley, Eckler, Derrick Henry. I mean, these are not Aaron Jones. I mean, these are not Pollard. I mean, these are not small names.
Mixon moved. Yeah.
These are not small names. And yet we have not been out there getting any of this, like I said. So we're just going to do it organically within, and that takes a long time. Now, here's the problem. The inside the building, everybody, hey, great meeting. Everybody gets up and dap and shake your hands. We got a plan here, right? And then you get through this offseason, you get to the season, and everybody's got the plan. We're all on the same page.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you start seeing what's out there on the field compared to some of these other teams in your division. Outside, you're going to be playing, and you start hearing them. Ownership sitting in the booth, Jay. and they hear the boo, even though it looks better because you can see
Right.
the players they're flying around more. They look like they're getting the concept. Boo, boo, then man, that's when it becomes real. And then that's when it becomes, well, I'm
Then
not too
that's when you
sure
start to
about this.
make these hasty moves, and then you start to spend all this money, and then it messes up the plan that you had, the strategy that you were trying to execute.
Yes, and that's when you go to each other. Like ownership is now looking at the GM. Like I know you said it was going, it was going to take some time, but can we speed this up a little bit? And then GM all of a sudden he's looking at because he's starting to get a little pressure. And
Yeah.
hey Gannon, hey, I gotta do a little better than this, man. I know I didn't give you a whole lot to work with, but
Oh
and then
man.
so it's a
Yeah.
cycle sometime. Now, sometime everybody's like, look, all right, look, hold on. We good. We know we talked about what we're trying to accomplish. We'll see because this method is going to be tested. The fortitude of these men inside this building making these decisions is going to be tested because
Yeah.
I'm looking and I'm seeing what they're trying to do and I understand it. But man, it's tough to do because
That's true.
the other thing that happens, Jay, now you have to hit when you have a roster like Kansas City, or that's maybe too high. When you have a roster like even I don't know mid team, why
I was
my
gonna say Philadelphia, but
let's,
Philadelphia is up there.
yeah, let's say Cleveland.
Yeah,
Okay,
Cleveland's good. Yeah,
okay,
okay.
right. You have a roster like that. You can miss on a couple draft picks. They've even brought some Jerry Judy and different things. They have a franchise quarterback, you got a defensive line, got Miles over there. So you're good. You can miss on a draft pick or two. When you're doing it this way, man, you got your hit rate has to go from 50-60% to upwards of 80-90%. Because
okay, I'm gonna interrupt. I just so you
go ahead.
mentioned that, so I'm gonna throw something out there. But isn't it? Can it be you panic? And it's because I've been hanging around you. I say this recently. Yeah. I've been hanging around you, so it's an analogy. You're in the club and it's close to 2 a.m. and you're trying to leave with something, and so you just leave with something, and that's where maybe a Ridley, a wide receiver Ridley, gets all this money when you're looking and saying, "Man, really getting this money?" And so you start to panic because you're trying to at least show something. And I wonder if that's what's going to end up happening with the Cardinals, because look, we need to make a splash. I don't care what you do, make a trade during training camp or whatever it is. If the draft doesn't hit the way it's supposed to hit, and we got to leave here with something.
You're on in the right direction with your analogy. I would say it's not panic, but imagine you go to the club, right? And you're taking, so you're on the road and you're taking something back to the room with you, right?
Yeah.
And in the morning, a whole bunch of dudes might be up to see what you brought home with you last night. So it's like I can't take a duck back with me tonight. It's like the urgency of these have to be hits. I can't, and I've done it before. I took ducks back to the room. That's bad. But you have to be, like I said, if you're going to do it this way, your percentage has to be even higher. Now, I'm not saying you have to panic, but I'm saying you got to be more correct than wrong. Even in your 6th and 7th round picks, what's happening now is you got to find the urgency to hit some home runs and find a hidden jewel is even more so later. You can't use that pick as think about like San Francisco a couple years back with Brock Purdy. That was just, we'll just go ahead and grab Brock Purdy. Nobody thought he was going to star or anything like that, at least, outside of their box. But you can't, like with the Cardinals, you got to be on point even all the way to that pick, trying to find. Can't even be a throwaway pick because you haven't done anything with your free agency. We got to make sure because now every pick is that much more important. Every player is that much more important because we got to solidify this roster somehow, some way. And if we decided to do it through the draft, that makes it that much more of an urgent situation. I applaud them for because you have to decide how you're going to do it.
You have to stick to it though, because that's the thing. You can decide all you want.
Yeah.
You can decide all you want, and then something happens, and you start to panic because you see either you're looking within your division, you're looking at whatever that is, and then you say, well, we can do it just this one time, and then you're off course.
Apparently, they've decided we are all in on this because free agent wise, they have decided they are not. And here's the other thing I'm trying to figure out though: the salary cap went up, so
Yeah.
you would think. I mean, that's like you got more money in your pocket, and they are still saying, and maybe they just couldn't come up with the number of years or money to throw out there at anybody to come in here, but I saw some of these other moves from some of these teams are making moves. They don't even need the players almost because they got too much in that spot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yet we are just like we holding on to it, bro. Like, hey, is there like a $600 million man out there somewhere? Or I mean, at some point we got to spend a little bit of it. And it would have been nice for me, even if you're doing a slow burn approach, to go grab a big name for the defensive line, like a big time edge rusher or someone in the middle that we could say, hey, we went and got him. Now we're going to build around him.
So you mentioned defensive line. So they signed Justin Jones, 3-year, $30.1 million deal, $19.7 million guaranteed. They signed Bleav Nichols for a 3-year deal. And on the defensive line, that's what it is. But they also on the defensive side of the ball, Lecky Fotu went to the Jets. So they, and then if we're talking about defense, let's go to cornerbacks. They brought in Sean Murphy-Bunting, but and then they let go Antonio Hamilton. So I mean, I guess none of those give you looking at your face. That doesn't give you none of those give you the warm and fuzzies.
No, I mean it's average signings for a below average team right now. I mean some of the stuff because it was so many big time free agents out there this year. That's why I won't say I'm disappointed, maybe just a little surprised that they didn't make at least one big splash move. They did it a few years ago, and it was with J.J. Watt. They brought him over, and it was almost like, wow, I was just looking for something along that line. And J.J. Watt was at the end of his career, so I understand. I'm not saying that type player, but I'm saying some of this young talent that was out there that was there to be had to bring in to be the anchor of your defensive line, the anchor of your offensive line, a big time wide receiver, a big time cornerback or whatever it is, all the positions that we needed when, like we're sitting there talking about, well, they made a trade for Desmond Ridder, backup quarterback. And okay, they got Sean Murphy Bunting. Okay, so far so good. Nah, so far so planned and I say that because they did the same exact thing last year. So they're staying in their mode. We'll see what they do in the draft. But it's going, like I said, to say that these additions, and you gotta go additions plus your subtractions,
right?
Because that's the one thing. You bring these guys in, you also let Marquise, Rondell, a few guys go. So this is like bringing in to replace what you lost. I'll ask you a question. Would you say we are at a plus or a negative right now? Meaning what we lost, what we saw depart, and what we brought in so far. Are we at a plus or a minus, or are we just even?
I would say even. Probably even because again, Marquise Brown wasn't necessarily given, and I heard this too, and I'm curious on your thoughts on this. Given the fact that that Gannon wants this team to be physical, they want hard nosed and physical. That some of these pieces didn't necessarily fit that hard nosed physical way of playing. Mm-hmm. So if you have a culture or if you have a strategy that you're trying to implement from a coaching perspective, then you're trying to get those guys in. Maybe they're getting these guys in. They may not. If you look at it on a scale from 1 to 10, the guys that they're bringing in, if 10 is not only do you fit our scheme, but you are extremely talented, maybe they're getting some 6s and 7s in terms of how that goes. They fit the scheme, but you're not necessarily talented, but we need your effort to be able to, we need that effort and that motor and any other analogies that you want to use to be able to get us closer to where we want to be as a team. But I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
Well, my philosophy is talent overrides and wins more than effort. And I'm saying that with talent. You need the talent with the motor and the effort. But more times than not, when you have a super talented team and you got somebody leading them the correct way, those dudes are going to win. You go get a bunch of mid-tier guys, those guys are going to keep you in a whole bunch of games and might even win a 1 or a 2. But if you're talking about a 17-game season, that's a long way to go with effort. That's, hey, guys, let's get out there and give them what we got. And then at the end of the game, it's like, you know what? I appreciate all the hard work. You guys gave them everything you got. We'll get them next time. It doesn't equate to a whole lot of wins. So, I appreciate them having a particular mindset and type of player they're looking for. Those are the guys that you want filling in between all that talent that you have. And right now, we just don't have a whole lot of talent on it. If you're saying, and I ask you, are you being honest just like I am, plus, minus, even right now? If they're even, Jay, and everybody else just got a little better within the division, and they didn't have to get a whole lot better. We saw the San Francisco team just go to the Super Bowl. Seattle was right there. Rams made it into the playoffs. So what does that make us in a 4-team hunt if we just stay where we are so far? And we're going to try to supplement a little in the draft, but we know the younger players, they're not going to come in here. They got systems to learn, got to learn the speed of the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have a shine, hopefully, player or two. But if we just stay where we're at, that means within the division, we're still number 4 within our own division, let alone climbing up the ladder in the NFC to eventually be a playoff team. So, it is what it is at this point.
You mentioned being number 4 in the division. They also are number 4 when it comes to the draft pick. So leave me with this before we get out of here. So because of the moves that they made where it comes to wide receiver, that if he's there, they're going to take Harrison Jr., right?
Whoever is there, in my opinion, there's I think 2 or 3 top flight wide receivers as far as, and it looks like the first 3 teams in front of us are going to take quarterbacks unless there's some shuffling and, moving and stuff like that. Who knows? At this point, they might even get a team or 2 behind us that might want to jump up, and we might get some draft capital and still be able to get our man, whoever we have projected. But yes, you talk about the wide receiver group. That has to be upgraded, and as well as some of the other positions. But, you bring up like our little tiny wide receivers, Marquise Brown. I was never a fan of his being here in the first place, especially when you brought him in to supplement for Hopkins while he was doing the suspension.
They gave up a number 1. They gave up a first-round pick to bring him in.
First-round pick to bring him in, but that was the previous regime. Yeah. So let's not blame that on the dude who's here. That's true. But I'm saying they're trying to correct the evils of past front office. So, but yeah, no, I think it's a no-brainer. You go because you have to start somewhere. You can't fix it all at once. And that's the problem, Jay. With free agency, there was an opportunity to make a splash boom to get somebody in here at one of those other positions. And then you're taking even more steps forward because you go get the wide receiver, the jewel to put in that spot. Right now, we're still at ground zero. We still have not even gotten a contract in here to get the permits to start making the work or doing the work and making the house. We're still waiting on permits, bro, because we didn't do anything during free agency. So we're sitting here like still shivering in the middle of the night because the wind is coming through and, got windows knocked out and stuff like that. We had a chance. Right. Well, in my opinion, we had a chance and I'm not saying go spend all the money, but spend some of the money, bro. There was too much out there to come back empty-handed. Now, like I said, if this is your philosophy, God bless you. We'll see where we are in a few months and so forth and, through the season. But, man, this looks like a replay of 2023 if I never saw one.
And I'll say this before we head out, and you can comment on it, is that's the thing. If Monty Ossenfort and lockstep with Gannon goes to Bidwill and says, this is what we want to do. It's going to look painful, but this is what we want to do. If Bidwill if he gets impatient and he does one of 2 things, if he either says, no, you got to change it, then it messes up the whole process, right? Or if he says, no, you guys, I'm not liking this, you're fired. I'm just saying, that means you start all over again because you have a new, in this analogy, contractor that comes in and says, why'd they put that there? No, I'm going to put that there. We're going to re-gut this thing again, and y'all going to be in that hotel for another 3 or 4 months before you come back because I got to fix what the other guy did wrong, just because it's a difference in philosophy.
Yeah, I will. As we watch this, we'll watch the draft, obviously, and then as we get, we got months to get to it. We get to the season, then you start keeping your eye on when the trade deadline is out there, because that's your next. That's down the road, but that's when you make those moves. It's like, why'd they do that? But they're staying true to their form so far, and if you're a
That's
fan,
commendable.
it's commendable.
Because you got to wait out and see. It's painful, as you mentioned. It's gonna be painful. Don't walk in the house because you're gonna see that's where your kitchen's gonna be. It ain't there right now, but that's where it's gonna be. Just trust me.
You never let the wife see that stuff, bro. You go alone until they finish some of that stuff up, because she'll start to cry the second she sees holes in her walls and windows knocked out, and all the dirt on the floor and dust and stuff like that.
Shoot, not the wife. When we was doing stuff here at the house, man, and I was here I'm working in the house while they doing it, and my heart's hurting because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the demolition.
I'm telling you, bro. Well, let's a message to our fans. Just you don't want to see how the soup is made. Just close your eyes, and we'll eventually get there. This might be a hard watch, and I know we're setting ourselves up for 2024. We got a long way to go. You and I are going to be here for the fans all the way through it, Jay.
Yes, sir.
But like I said, we want to keep it real, and that's what we're going to do. Keep it real as we move forward.
Well, that is Ed Smith. I am Javon Adams. Bleav in Cardinals. Make sure you tell a friend about what we have going on here. As always, we are presented by Bet Online, and we say, as we always like to say around this time, you can